We are taking a closer look at the Supreme Court's decision to strike down affirmative action and what it means in California. Demonstrators, they gathered outside the Supreme Court after justices ruled that race-conscious admission policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina violate the Constitution. A nonprofit sued the universities, claiming they discriminated against Asian American and white students. In his majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote universities can still consider, quote, an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. In her dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote, the decision rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress. So the decision is expected to have an impact in California, even though our state banned affirmative action nearly 3 decades ago. Back in 1996, voters approved Prop 209, banning the state's public schools from considering race, ethnicity, and gender in admissions decisions. You may recall the issue was on our ballots in 2020 elections, but voters rejected a measure that would have repealed Prop 209. So today's ruling means California private colleges like Stanford will be under the same restrictions as UC and Cal State schools. So Choi has been covering this. He's live at the University of San Francisco, one of many campuses now looking at how to protect diversity without affirmative action. What did you find out, Kenny?
So, Juliet, as you would expect, this ruling by SCOTUS has ignited emotional responses from both sides. Bill Ng, a professor here at USF, says that this ruling is a sad step backwards on the road to a racial equality here in the country. But for those who support the Supreme Court decision, they say that this is leveling the playing field for all.
Well, Bill Russell ended up with 11 rings. But
University of San Francisco President Paul Fitzgerald wants to build an even more diverse student body on campus. The latest Supreme Court ruling will impact the way private universities select students.
It seems to declare victory, in racial justice that we have not yet achieved. We still have a long way to go as a nation.
If there's no checkbox for race in applications in the near future, Fitzgerald believes universities may implement additional essays, asking students to tell more about themselves. USF ranks second in the nation for student ethnic diversity, according to the latest U.S. News and World Report. That's part of the reason Damian Gunter enrolled here.
I think that affirmative action helps a lot of people in states like the state that I'm from, like Texas.
Jason Zhu is president of the Silicon Valley Chinese Association Foundation, which opposes affirmative action policies.
We removed a systemic discrimination in the policy of this country against Asians, and we only have 5%. In California, we're 15%. So for the country, I think it's more significant in the sense that we have kept intact a merit-based system.
But Bill Ng, a prominent professor of law at USF, couldn't disagree more.
And I'm disappointed because the data does not support Asian Americans who claim that they are being damaged by affirmative action programs.
Ng believes Asians like himself have and will continue to benefit from affirmative action.
I've been an educator since the 1970s, and I can tell you that the classroom, the level of discussion, it's much better when there's a diverse group. And I just think it's wrong-headed.
Fitzgerald says the university hasn't finalized any plans for changing the admissions process, but discussions on how to respond have begun.
And higher education has been and ought to be allowed to continue to be an engine driving this country toward the fulfillment of the promises of our foundation.
So, Kenny, the key question is the UC system has actually banned from using affirmative action for decades. So what changes have they made in the past years?
So, Julia, this has been essentially a 25-year experiment for the UC system and the regents. Since that ban was implemented in 1996, they have used race-neutral measures to try to ensure that there's diversity among its campuses or on their campuses throughout the state of California. One example has been to increase the kind of outreach and recruitment of certain students by going into certain neighborhoods and high schools Another has been offering free preparations for academic preparation classes, like for the SATs, before the Regents decide to get rid of standardized tests as part of the admissions process. And another example has been to change the UC admissions policy. One example, by accepting the top 9% of high schools from students from each high school. So those are some of the changes that were implemented since that ban in 1996, but it's still an ongoing process after 25 years.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kenny Choi. Kenny, thank you. Now, Governor Newsom predicted there would be a significant decline in Black and Latino admissions because of today's ruling. President Biden also slammed the decision.
I strongly disagree with the court's decision. I believe our colleges are stronger when they're racially diverse.
Is this a rogue court?
This is not a normal court.
Now, CBS News YouGov poll from this month found 70% of Americans surveyed think colleges should not be allowed to consider race in admissions.